Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this evening's episode. And the title is. Just a second. I wanted to speak about when attention extended matter beyond thought. There we go. I wasn't sure how I worded it. You see, my life reveals to me two sorts of data. These data come. The data comes to me through one manner being objective, which is materialistic. So matter is data. It's pretty much imagination before I have to imagine it. Now, there's another sort of data which is subjective. Now, the subjective data is tricky because it seems the way our attention functions in the invisible room of imagination is that instantly thoughts come and go. The speed of thoughts coming and going is a bit quicker, I consider, at least, than the speed of matter moving. Now, what that means is it's not always like that. Sometimes somebody can come and tell you something, and then you change your view, and then you physically move your body in a different way. You move the objective aspect of your existence in a different way. Sometimes the objective aspect changes. You know, sometimes before you have a chance to read your notebook, the wind, in some sense, let's say, pushes the paper aside. You know, what I'm trying to get to is that we are one moment of being with two different textures of uh, two different modes of being. Uh, Not really feeling the music. Existence and experience are two sides of the same coin. Subjectively, your existence is called experience. Objectively, your experience is called existence. And you begin to notice a relationship between these two. Oftentimes, I wonder, how can I say it? Alexander the Great, when he died, he was set on a boat, and his hands were open, and the boat was set aflame. So that was an honorable way where those honored passed away in those times. Now, some people wondered, why did Alexander the Great's arms? Why were his arms open when he was moving on this ship, on this boat? You know. And it's because Alexander the Great wanted the world to know that you leave empty handed. And so oftentimes my life fills in value based on what I feel I have or what I feel I am. You know, what I feel I am suggests what I can have. This is how it goes. Your experience defines your relationship with your existence primarily because we say there is a mind. We say you wake up in the morning. That you is present. Yet if the way it is present is a mystery, as if there's the hard problem of consciousness and then there's the easy problem. And so we go as far as we can based on the tools we create. You know, if the caveman didn't stumble upon fire, you know, we couldn't talk about the engines of spacecraft. The experience found a way to I don't think there's a word for it, but to re-be, R-E-B-E, you know, to re-be. We're an attention that is oscillating between experience and existence. And it's oscillating in a way where it's simultaneous, yet our attention goes to the subjective realm, it goes to the objective realm, and this goes on. It keeps going on. It occurred for your ancestors, it's occurring for you. Now, the sophistication of this is that when a creature evolves, the tools it requires must evolve too. That means you can't wear the same shirt as you had, for example, when you were like 10 years old, like when you're 20. You can't wear the same shirt. You can try, but you'll suffocate yourself. That shirt is no longer for you. So, similarly, I find with ideas and beliefs, which are abstract tools, I don't believe I'm a thought. I believe I use thoughts. Right now, because of sound originating out of my mouth, you feel I'm saying words. And you feel these words have a certain meaning. But on some level, as simply as we can say the universe is just atoms, bro, atoms in empty space, we can simply say that our identities and the inner universe is simply made of words. It's made of a sort of abstract containment of an individual point of attention. So your story of life is how ideas are orbiting around the center of your attention. And for me, there's two sorts of birth. The human being goes through two sorts of birth. Conscious existence, and then it is reborn as a conscious experiencer. I am speaking to you as a conscious experience. The difference between me and, let's say, like a 2-month-old child is that the laps that I've ran around the sun have sculpted me. The days I have lived on this planet have shaped me. Yet I have learned through the wisdom of just karma that you can't hold on anything too long. This is why, for me, it's not that I ever doubted like true love, especially in a relationship between lovers. It's like I didn't doubt that sort of love, but for me, I noticed the universe is here. And so eventually, that which began will end. The sands of the hourglass will finish, dictated by the gravity of their situation. Attention extends matter internally into a subjective realm of language and images. What we are saying is us, is how we have felt in the moment based on our energy levels to fit in a story that is changing all the time behind our eyes and even in front of it. When I like politics will become interesting for you when you begin to see the echo of decisions. Your civilization will become interesting for you first by you noticing it's here. That's something that's one difference I didn't have. The main difference I noticed because I remember, guys, a very early moment in my life where it was pre-thought. It was before I had learned language. So as a conscious entity, I was experiencing just images. I hadn't yet contained these images in sophisticated ways. I hadn't even contained myself in an I thought to then be somebody. That means I have a memory of this world where I'm nobody. Like it's before I learned language as a child. And so that memory was so significant because it reminded me that it is the acceptance of attention. There is some sort of way your attention is within you that is authorizing how reality occurs in me. So one can say this is a sort of domain of our free will. When you can't change the external, what do? You change the internal. When you can't change the external or the internal, which is the peak of mysticism. Most people think spirituality is like some kind of sort of happy thing where the guru comes and says it's all love and they all get emotional and cry and they're all enlightened. It's not like that. Every generation commands its own response. That means no two people have ever been enlightened in the same way, for no two people have ever had each other's eyes. They have only come into the conclusion that the witness behind their eyes is the same. When you go into Indian culture, that's I remember when I went to India. Like I'm a kid who was like born in Iran at the age of 7, came to Canada, and then went back and forth between countries. But mainly, I've lived in Canada, Toronto, Canada, a lot of my life. And so, I can tell you, when I went to India, I had a chance in 2016, or at the end of 2016, to go to India, Rishikesh, India, for 2 months and live in an ashram. And I remember when I went there. Something, first of all, I'll tell you all tourists, don't think every person there is a holy person, you know? There's a lot of people on the street dressed as holy people who are going to ask you for money, but you shouldn't, because a lot of criminals, if they wear a holy garb, they can't go to jail. So a lot of criminals behave like holy men to, in some sense, avoid the law. It's kind of ironic, you know? And anyways, it was a very profound culture, though. I loved it there because in the authentic moments of people there, their sort of metaphysical and mythology of the culture was active. So you see, you can say the secular society doesn't give a shit about myths. You know, it says myths were like, you know, bedtime stories. You know, I think that's the greatest thing that secularism can get, because secularism has to separate itself from the ancient world so it doesn't repeat its mistakes. You have to see your ancestry were blind so you can now tell yourself you can see. And so secularism also is a freedom of space, freedom of internal space from unnecessary ideas. That means your attention, let's say, just like how you have a house, you have a moment of being where that's your attention is in. Now, sometimes you can live in the thought from the beginning of the day, or thoughts can become you throughout the day. So this is very unique what I'm saying. You as a moment of being. Alright guys, I'm gonna make this easier. I'm gonna put headphones on so I can change the music without it interrupting. So give me a second. Okay. Silence is also conversation. That's a quote by Sri Ramana Maharshi, if you know who that is. Anyways, the song's about to come. Okay, let's do this. What's a good checkpoint to start from? Your attention moves you. You're not your thoughts, you're the attention to your thoughts. When you realize this, you find freedom from the stories that constantly generate repetitive emotions. You step out of a program of a way you have accepted the world, and in a like kind of you take the world from meaning into non-meaning to, in some sense, see new meaning. And it's this sort of thing that's always been going on. It indirectly happens as we age in this life, as we grow, and we can't we can't acknowledge each other as just shapes, because we are changing shapes. And so we can't have a civilization just waiting, for the right belief. People are just waiting to be fed the right belief. I don't like that kind of civilization. I feel that we must take a universal responsibility. When you take a universal responsibility, so what is your first responsibility in a universe? To realize what is watching this. This life is a movie you're in.
Imagine this life is a movie you're in. Now, a part of this movie has meaning and value based on how you have experienced life, but a lot of it has unknown value and meaning. And for me, I don't consider people as smart or stupid in some sense. It doesn't make, like, I use those words sometimes, like for language's sake, but I don't see intelligence in a way where you can measure it. For me, intelligence is how much you can rhythmically abide by it, how much you can ride the wave of your talent into the innovation of a, like, here, this is, I could tell you Einstein, it could have been a natural interest that this dude was in a post office and he suddenly wrote those two papers on general relativity and relativity and super relativity. I'm not sure exactly what the titles were telling, what his essays were, right? But he wrote E equals mc squared came to him in a post office where Einstein had this thought experiment where he was moving in a light beam or something. Okay, so for me, I'm like, whoa, okay, this is a great man who has contributed something great to the world, a formula, an observation, a realization that is so profound that all scientists, in some sense, stand in honor in regards to what Albert Einstein did. But Albert Einstein, in the moment he wrote those papers, that was a new finding, as if Einstein's quote equation was something he just saw. He was the first human being to see it before anybody else. Okay? And so it's as if there comes a responsibility in how we introduce novelty to the present. And based on a civilization, you can say a civilization is heading towards the past or the future. Don't think, guys, everybody's just thinking like they want to update themselves. Some people are trying to protect the past, and in that, missing the opportunity of a lifetime. This is why I don't tell you can color yourself in as many beliefs as you want, but they're not necessary. What is necessary is the alignment of the attention. Is the authenticity of the moment, the recognition that we are not creatures here to just read books and write books. You know, we're not here just to play with language our whole life. This language is a tool. It is what the civilization requires to advance. So we can say before the internet, it was the realm of communication that was in some sense updating the general movement of all of us as a collective. So before any sort of technology, the first technologies were communication, were speech, were an ability from the inner for there to be projected that something to the outer. So what we see is it's not just an evolution of a biological being, we are seeing the evolution of this biological being at some point becoming a subject to itself. And they don't teach that because it's undocumented. But it can be concluded. That means I'm pretty much a person born into this world, and this story has been telling itself a story before I was born. Now I enter this world like a battlefield of stories and ideology being thrown at me, okay? And I reacted. I fought this life. Not like physically, I wasn't a violent kid or anything. I'm saying I resisted life's movement. I wanted life to constantly, like, it was this, it's kind of like, before suffering hits you, you want the world to behave like how you only see it. So you have this, like, this is what children don't see until they step out of childhood into the next phases of living. And the next phases of living include greater responsibility. But it does not mean always the performance of responsibility could be well. That means there could be a kind person, a kind-hearted person, but this person can sometimes be ignorant to do the kindness. Do you see? It doesn't mean that person is a bad person because he didn't do what we expected. Sometimes our expectations are unnecessary cages we put on people. This is why before you can truly have the secrets of nature be revealed through a sort of inner union of the outer and inner phenomena of your experience. Like right now, you have separated the microcosm and the macrocosm. But some philosophers were kind of looking at people in society and they were like, guys, there's an inseparability. And as Mandelbrot introduced this concept of fractals into mathematics, we begin to see Plato finally being able to breathe peacefully. Because Plato had this quote where he said, as above, so below. As if Plato noticed the behavior of the world was not in separate classifications overall. As if we are like two icebergs that hit one another in the middle of an ocean. Okay? And let's say when the iceberg melts, that's the end of physical life. Like how freaked out are you? You see, if death is only to fear because there is something to lose. And the only thing that is here to lose is you being distracted by a program of thought rather than realizing you only get one lifetime to be free. So many people are just trying to, their intentions are kind of inspired out of doing something to be free. Similar to the working man, the blue collar guy, you know? He went to work, went through the suffering to enjoy the heaven after, you know? But you see, there's a sort of, there's two kinds of suffering, guys. I don't know, like for me, sometimes when the world is filled with multiple dimensions, sometimes it's not, you see? And there's no sentence someone can say that can honestly help you your whole life. But what the greatest thing I find that a teacher can be is a mirror. That means the moment, like you guys don't understand. Most people think like I'm talking to you, right? You think right now I'm talking to you, and I am. Okay, I'm acknowledging this is going in public on a public domain online. This YouTube thing is my digital notebook, kind of. But at the same time, I recognize that when I give this talk, whatever I say in these talks, I am speaking to my own eyes, but you are hearing from your eyes. And there is a world, not just one world, but many. There's many worlds behind your eyes. And it is shyness and just weakness and all these unnecessary ideologies that limit our advancement. You know what the biggest problem of world peace is? It's not that world peace can't happen. It's that nobody knows where to begin. Nobody knows where to begin when we have considered ourselves a selfish animal. Where else can you go if you are only a selfish animal? You see, that's the problem of beliefs. How dare they define the changing phenomena that you are? So, anyways, attention is how biological phenomena is being translated into subjective phenomena. That subjective phenomena, by being in attention into the objective phenomena, shapes itself in the subjective realm. So that means it's very, very intelligent. There's a very unique, intelligent thing happening behind our identities, behind our ideas that we think we are. What it is the presence of attention from the personality of thought. That means if the moment could be described as matter and consciousness, like a moment, is made of two basic elements: consciousness and matter. Let's say now consciousness is, how would I say it? It's like the matter needs matter needs space to be in, to be individual. Matter needs space. Space needs matter. They can't exist without one another. Our eyes have opened in the middle of a duality. And from this duality, our whole history and stories of life have come. And we can't say they're wrong, and we shouldn't say they're wrong, because knowledge has a value. Our ancestors lived for so many reasons that we will never know, but we must still carry their beacons. We must carry the torches passed down from past generations, but we must also do it in the permission of the future. That means I want you to imagine we should have enough responsibility as a species, as just humanity, as just under that banner. Like we don't have a flag, we just say the word humanity is enough, you know? And so as humanity, or as the living people now, okay, we shouldn't do something so drastic that it denies the freedom of the future generations. That's what I am shocked. I'm like this, like, I'll be honest, I'm like, this is the best way I can say it. My eyes open to this world. I recognize the past is throwing rocks at me and the future has closed the doors at me. That means I can't see into my future, and my past is where my suffering lives. Trust me, when you lose your past, you lose your suffering. The past is how your attention wants to still be in a thought, and you oscillate between the two. You don't recognize this. Just like your heart beats, your attention is oscillating between being an individual phenomena and then just being space. You're being matter, then you're being space. You're being matter, and you're being space. And guys, if you truly understood what I said here, I don't care about credit. Just run to the ears of the global stage and say it. I want I'm going to challenge our educational system in a way that it's going to feel embarrassed, because it's worth it. You know, it's worth it that future generations have their eyes more open than we did, not more closed. That's the problem. There is an incredible shyness of the species simply because we have idolized individuality. So we are deciding our comfort is in being individual, being separate from the world. Because we have associated our comfort in being separate with the world, we have become a judge of the world we see. Trust me, you're holding the conceptual universal judge's hammer. You are as powerful as Thor as a mental being, as a thought. That means I can stand here saying, guys, I'm a humble guy. I can stand here saying, guys, I'm as mighty as the highest mountains or something. I can put any image in this moment. Yet, am I those images? Am I the words that I speak, or are my words just an effort, an attempt? They are a failed attempt at revealing 100% of what I see, but only being able to do a certain percentage of it. That's why for me, speech has become more of exploring the unknown charted territories of what is considered as mind. You know, why do we have in the English language the term, that guy's out of his mind? You know, I honestly, if somebody said that to like people like Osho or Shri Prabhupada, those guys would take it as a compliment. Because the mind is attention. You don't understand. I am saying something I didn't, like all these enlightened people in the past, in the Upanishads, in the Tao Te Ching, like in the Mahabharata, like in just so many different cultures, like there, like so many ideas come to me, but like in so many cultures, they thought enlightenment was to go somewhere else. That is their failure. That is the failure of ancient ideas not being able to be properly relayed. Because arrogance is playing its game. You know, I do these, you know, in public, like when I'm in public, um, sometimes I do an uncommon act to see how people react. So suddenly, in a group of, I remember these like people who were just standing there trying to be very fancy. I went in front of them and picked up trash on the ground that wasn't mine, and I put it in the trash. Okay? And I left, and I was kind of from a distance looked at them to see what, like, you know what I mean? Just like in that moment, looked at them to see how their eyes looked at the action. And then you can see how authentic and unauthentic people are. The easiest way to find out who a liar is by you being honest. By being honest in front of everybody. Then no, they can't resist not being honest, because we resonate to each other's nature. That means as much as we're here, we're saying like we embrace nature through a mystical elegance of kind of revering it as a sacred opportunity that if we don't take care of in the future, our children's children might, only in history books trees might be exist. So we don't want that kind of future. We want a world where the atmosphere can still shield our species, pretty much. It has to do with the evolution of the inner identity. Carl Jung kind of tapped into it, or at least how I perceive Carl Jung tapped into it. Carl Jung, I've spoken about this in other talks this week. I've kind of rammed in on this idea, but the whole notion of it is that Carl Jung found an attention to his mind. Okay? That's what set him apart from his colleagues. He found a unique relationship with his mind where ideas had meaning. A lot of meaningless ideas come and go throughout the day. But imagine just experiencing only meaningful ideology, as if ideas choose who they walk up to. Responsibility finds the eyes that are open. So your attention, this is going to sound extremely hilarious, but is your God. How your attention is how subjective phenomena and objective phenomena abide and are one moment. It's very tricky. It's very fascinating. For me, I feel that it's like, because we're explorers, imagine these explorers that constantly explore and they find incredible things, but they never explore enough to see if the world is an illusion or not. Okay? Because they don't want the game to stop. So this is where the expertise of just people is required. I see people in two ways. Not two ways, but when I speak, at least, everybody who listens to me is either an advanced communicator or a pilot of consciousness. Excuse me. These are concepts I've developed. They have an incredible personal value because I find them necessary. So everybody is an advanced communicator, actually, but most people, the way they can experience themselves in advanced ways is kept in their unconscious. Their unconscious is kept by their idea of self. Their idea of self is kept by the wisdom of their attention. The wisdom of their attention is kept by the awareness that has realized self is the moment. Self is the edge of your awareness. It's not the edge of your body. That's what self is. There's more data. Like, we cannot lie. We can't say we're objective phenomena, guys. Come on, we can't. I mean, we can. Obviously, like, we see our body in the mirror. I see myself every time I flex. Definitely in those moments, I'm a materialist when I'm flexing in the mirror. But the value of matter seems to be found in something that's beyond matter. And when we wonder, what do we in the observable universe know that's beyond matter? And believe it or not, we have evidence of only one thing. And the evidence of this one thing is more than the evidence of matter. We are sure there is space. Do you know? We are sure there is space. We have more evidence, actual evidence in front of us of empty space than fullness. That means, guys, maybe there's a reason the world is an empty space. Maybe there's a reason thoughts are hovering in the middle of nowhere. Do you see? You unleash your authentic curiosity to live in the right moments because you realize the point of life is to be those moments. They asked this guy, what's your view on success and failure? And you know what that guy said? That guy said, what are those words? I've never heard of them. I just live. You see the difference? You see the difference of stability. When you become outcome oriented, your emotions become fragile and intense. When you don't reach that outcome, it's like a slingshot of emotions just burst out of you. Oh shit, oh my god, I lost. Oh my god, I became second. Oh my god, I wasn't first. Oh my god, I wasn't on the top. Like I wasn't the winner. It just goes. Confusion can really continue if allowed. But we that's the point of our free will. We have free will to organize the chaos. Why else is free will here? Can someone tell me? Like I find it's an organizational intelligence. The Rig Vedas have an incredible quote where they say the mind is a slave to the real. Do you understand the intensity of that statement? That means reality is the center of your truth. So how far have we studied reality? Or were we just like children, just like how in World War, and pretty much one of the soldiers got a gun, the other soldier got bullets. So that if there was no gun, they would pick up somebody's gun, put bullets in and shoot. Do you see? So it was like, how can I tell you? Like, there was a sort of opportunity given, non-opportunity given. You know, there should be a joke probably. I think I'm gonna create a joke for that has never existed on this planet. The patient goes to the doctor and says, "Doctor, what happens when I sleep? What happens to me when I sleep? What happens to the idea of me when I sleep?" And the doctor, you know what the doctor says? I'm going to change this from a joke into something about. The doctor says, emptiness doesn't need a doctor. On some manner, experientially, you start in your own world. Anybody who doesn't, who thinks that, how would I say it? Study your attention. Your attention is the source of the world. Before interpretation, before you were defined a creature of definitions, you were the creature of the undefinable. That's your true presence. Now that true presence is so chaotic. So this is why people shouldn't be so keen on throwing their egos away, because the dude was super spiritual. Like, you shouldn't. Your ego is how the unborn presence of the universe is being the known temporal thought. It's a convergence point, the ego. It's the child of matter and consciousness. That's the ego. And the ego dictates its world. And I'm trying to think what other word we can create for the ego that better describes it. But I think it should include the word ego in it too. So let's call it ego. Let's call it product of attention. You're a product of your attention. Or let's say no, not a product. You're a procedure of your attention. That's the best way. So instead of ego, think it's a procedure of attention. Your attention is moving in certain ways, so it's being a certain thing. And in every moment, that's the ability of just our intelligence. The edges of the known and the unknown shift all the time. I'll tell you, I don't give them too much of a storified context. Um, but I've had moments in this life where it was fascinating. It was as if my moment, which imagine this just invisible, if like I'm just being very playful here, but imagine like if there was an invisible sphere of light around a person, and that sphere of light suddenly moves out of where they were sitting. Okay? So imagine your aura moves. Imagine if you're like one of those new age people, you know. How can I say it? Like, it was as if that sphere of light moved and my moment went to a different room, and my body did not listen. It was as if my mind went somewhere where my body didn't, and my body followed. Right? But when I say my body, I'm acknowledging that I keep telling you guys I don't believe I'm like this is like I'm making it too personal unnecessarily here. Here, let me see how I can say. I don't believe that we can be thoughts. I don't believe we can be our emotions. I don't believe we can be anything that is being watched by something. There is a primary watcher within. When you realize that, you kind of realize how in ancient times they said, like, man, that person, when he entered the room, he had such a presence. Like, they had like these kind of like cultural things, right? And so that presence comes from how much the self and the actual awareness are in alignment, how much the involuntary processes of nature are in some sense functioning with an alignment of the voluntary, processes of nature. And your the idea of you, your mind, your thought, the way you move your body, that you can say that is in a voluntary process of nature. Okay, but the involuntary process of nature is the greater Tao, Tao. Like, this is what like Lao Tzu's life pretty much was meant to kind of reveal this to the world. That there's the presence, the unspeakable, unattribute. Oh man, I'm getting too excited. Lao Tzu was this Chinese philosopher with the white beard, and he was Confucius's teacher, you know. And so Lao Tzu, he wrote the Tao Te Ching, and this book is a work of, like, it is a just like how the pyramids are like a wonder of the world. This book is a wonder of literature, and a wonder of just how the book was intended to be shared. And in the Tao Te Ching, the first thing it says that the Tao that could be spoken about is not the real Tao. The truth that can be spoken about is not the real truth. That's the first thing in the book, first line of the book. Can you imagine what else is going to come? And the book is very beautifully designed to show that non-duality seems to be the platform of the experience of truth. You know what made the hero in super movies a hero? Because he did something no one else did. That was the greatest responsibility, the responsibility of every intelligent explorer. We can choose to bog ourselves down, just like how Iron Man, like Tony Stark, chose to get into the Iron Man suit. We can choose to go into beliefs of like, yo, I'm this, you're that, da 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 da, But I'm telling you, this is why every generation can look at the past and be like, look at those fools. Let me tell you why we can do that. Because we are standing out of their confusion, out of their not knowing. That is why we feel we know. So it's very fascinating. I always wanted to, like, I haven't had the chance yet, but I wanted to ask a notable scientist. I can understand how you measure, you know, for example, with different scientific instruments, you know, different stuff. But I can't comprehend how the scientist measures knowing, or how they know, or pretty much a sort of ontological gaze at the conceptual agreement of what matter and truth and thoughts and all this are. For me, it's so complex because there's so many factors. It's as if like we're one part of like a brain. Imagine like this kind of like we are one part of the brain of nature, you know, and there's many other parts of the brain of nature, and we're all debating on who's right. Yet we see the brain is commanding, nature is commanding, whether we like it or not. Existence happens. For me, I am kind of enlisted in how can I tell you, the army of being. A part of you is just being, is with nature, as nature, you know, and a part of you is the human idea and the development and the evolution and the advancement of the species. So I want you to kind of find your vision of humanity that makes you feel there's something intelligent that can be built here. It's an empty rock, guys. Holy shit. We're all on an empty rock. We're all on an empty rock, and we've built everything, including our beliefs. We've built them out of various contexts. Knowledge is built out of many unknown contexts. They're like the gears of the engine of uh, education must move with unknown inspiration. This is why I'm telling you, we have to give. Children are so intelligent that I feel soon in the future, you know, the 10-year-old child will have a conceptual grasp, or could potentially have the conceptual grasp of, for example, a 30-year-old man, you know. Let me tell you why. Because the data is shared for everyone. You can't hide, you can't cover a person's eyes. That's why we have even freedom of speech. You can't cover a person's voice because you must let nature grow. There's no point. You know, you like this is why I love, in some sense, like guys, how can I tell you? It's so strange. But the most horrific things on this planet were required to give us a history, you know? It's strange. It's strange, but we need the chaos to have an order. And we need to have an order to even be able to conceive a sort of chaotic thing happening to it. So I'm telling you, you have to study these things. You have to study your relationship with language, the whole thing. You know, how the dictionary is being your mind, pretty much. Or how much you're choosing language to define you. And then how much you choose thought to define you, and then you choose how much experience you want experience to define you. Then you get to a point where you see the next greatest choice of all the choices you have made. It's like the evolution of conscious choice is unconscious movement. This is why enlightenment didn't matter. The enlightened person, this is why I think the Lotus Sutra really took a dramatic approach to Buddha, in some sense, at the end of his life, being like, holy shit, we were all enlightened from the beginning. What that means is like, there is stuff that's man-made, but the idea of man-made for each person is made by the experience. Is self-made based on their experience. You're a living phenomena here. And that's why I say advanced communicator, because you're an advanced communication of the universal sector. You're one of the like most intelligent things going around on this rock. And you don't realize it. And you think, holy shit, I'm stressed. My life is shitty. Then, like so many people I see, and whenever I see someone talk about stress and depression, I declare war. Sorry, guys, I'm being playful, but like what I mean by that is that I don't let unnecessary ideas that bring inefficiency exist. This doesn't mean I avoid them. I acknowledge them, but I respond. And the response comes from your inner order. Your inner order comes from your confrontation of your outer chaos. And once you have confronted the outer chaos, the inner and the outer dynamic fades. It fades into your present experience. Suddenly you wonder, how could you even imagine a past? How could you imagine a future? It's all this moment. Yet you see it's an animation, as if we can, in some sense, be a world behind our eyes without people knowing. And so, what's the point of these even podcasts? Like a communication from one intelligent phenomenon's inner reality into an outer reality. And for me, I'm just saying, like, you just plant seeds and you watch it from a distance, and people can do whatever they like. You give freedom for intelligence to move because you respect people's inner rights. When you get to that point, you're pretty much living for the species, which is a good sign. Because, guys, very playfully, I have had many, I could say, inner visions, or I've seen, my mind's eye has perceived many civilizations evolve. You can say I have imagined many ways that civilizations have evolved on a planet, just innately, like as if like I tapped into a database of just how many civilizations have come and gone, how many times stardust has talked to itself. And so I'm telling you, we as human beings, we must find that responsibility. You have to find that inner freedom so you stop judging the outer world for how it hit you. You know, nowadays parents don't hit their children, you know? But let me tell you, parents are definitely emotionally and subjectively hitting their children. And the children are even crueler than the parent. Because the society that the child understands has become more crueler. That means this is what people don't understand. You disappoint your parents not just because, you know, of your decisions. You disappoint your parents by how much of how true you were in the society that you walked. This is why parents who see their kids change suddenly freak out. They're like, whoa, what happened? Like, what has entered the universe of this child so that its behavior has become different? And so the best way is that parents have to learn to interview their children like journalists. That's the only solution, you know. Journalism is going to solve every relationship problem, you know, in communication between people. Have an authentic curiosity to allow an inner reality to naturally be shared. Not naturally, but like, what's the word I'm looking for? You don't want to tell the sun how to shine because it was a fool's errand from the start. Something like that. It's like the man that tried to push a building only pushed himself. And that metaphor can really suffice for the unknown. Knowledge is trying to push the unknown. Our knowledge, the efforts of our exploration, and scientists are standing very proudly. Our evidence shows da na 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 na. You know, shows that this is how exactly phenomena happens. And I have an incredible respect for science. Like, you don't understand. I'm from childhood. I was kind of like, technology fascinated me, but like, because I saw it alive. It was an effort of man's creation to be alive. You know, that's what the TV was when I saw it. I'm like, holy shit, you know, we're trying to create ourselves mechanically. And I have to say this, that the president of the United States should tell the people of the technological sector that they all have to read the Upanishads. You know, if this was done, I would be so fascinated what the solution to AI would be, because the solution to many of our chaotic challenges. Right now, I'm speaking to just all like pretty much the efforts of mankind. And I'm saying this, there's going to be some chaotic things happening to this planet. Okay, either they're going to happen internally, either it's going to be like an inside job where like we blow ourselves up or something, or it's going to be an outside job where something comes and blows us up, you know. So either we get mad at ourselves or the universe gets mad at ourselves and throws a rock at us, you know. So, so in this dynamic, we begin to see we take morality seriously, but because we see we are mortal creatures, we design the cultural atmosphere playfully. We declare our truths playfully. That means it's still a potential. The ratio of the certainty of it can change. But what we actually know, it's honoring the present culture. That means I totally can see factual reality. I can acknowledge it very easily. But the method of incorporation is always left to each person's experiences. That means no two physicists read the same equation. No two physicists ever read the same equation. Philosophers, they should in advanced academia. This is what Mr. Within's view on advanced academia. Pretty much, I want you to imagine in the highest levels of our educational system, in the highest performance, the most intellectual peak of the intellectual effort, okay, we begin seeing that instead of having the scientist just doing science and the philosopher just doing philosophy and the artist just doing art, you know, and the ceremonial doing the ceremonial, for example, religion and many behavioral cultural things are just ceremony related, because like even drinking coffee in the morning is a sort of ceremony, so you can even sleep as a ceremony. Like it can all be seen that way. But anyways, what I'm trying to get to is that the academic atmosphere becomes one where it's as if rather than everybody in their own room trying to in their own branch of knowledge trying to just figure the problem out, we have units. We have this sort of, we create these great like kind of schools, these grand schools, as if we ask the greatest architects around the world to come and create the most fascinating and biggest school there ever was, and the school is just made into halls. Do you see? And in these halls, human beings are having the greatest debates. And imagine all of this is being shared digitally too. And so in that effort, okay, just think about it. Just I'm trying to build the context here. It's as if some military general comes to all academics, just comes to all academics, and says 99.9% of species, okay, die or civilizations just fade. So academia should not waste its time when we are temporary people. Do you see? So, in some sense, what is the best way that academics cannot waste their time? They begin having open dialogue. That means I want the smartest people on this planet, and there's so many beyond me. I'm just a student, part of the audience, just watching and learning. But I want the smartest people on this planet begin having conversations, begin sharing inner structures, because when the world hears a conversation between two different realms of success, many realms of failure in a supernova way get destroyed. When you see how victory was looking at it, your failures don't exist, because now you can look through the eyes of the victorious. Now your intelligence is updated to a certainty that is not, it's like you stop letting outer things affect you. It doesn't mean you become like a machine and robot and never feel like express your emotions or communicate. It doesn't mean you don't embrace change. It just means that what we have is more than just the dictionary word of mind. You're not just You're not just a story. That's my point. So what are we? We are the effort of nature to be able to have a free will where it can make its choice. That means imagine a lot of nature was like, holy shit, nature's moving us, we can't do anything, like a lot of animals. Suddenly the human being came to a place where he was like, holy shit, I could choose now. As if a part of God's mind now could command the rest. By the way, guys, these talks are sort of tunneling into the unknown abyss, or the unknown um, vision that our knowledge turns or in, revolves in. For me, language is architecture. I've embraced it like that. I've had moments where I've just been the moment, literally no attribute. It's just like when you really, like, imagine if you were actually peaceful. Imagine right now, maybe you're not, you're suffering or whatever, you're in a tough neighborhood, whatever. But I'm saying, like, imagine. Imagine, like, you can imagine something in an instant, right? So just imagine that in the state that you were extremely peaceful, how would you be behaviorally? Just try to imagine your greatness. And that is my request. Because you get only one lifetime. And phenomena is just a mirror of consciousness. And every time I say consciousness, the world suddenly, gives the New Age community a chance to talk. Oh, man. I feel it's like this, in there was this video game. It was Gears of War. Okay? And in this game, the characters entered the battlefield or wherever in pods. And some pods were opened and some pods were not, and you had to go, and sometimes you have to open a pod, like a comrade's pod. Okay? So in this game, right, it was as if like people were first in their own pod. They were not allowed to still be a chooser in the moment. They were still contained by something. Okay? Let's say like the mischief of the ego, or the product of your attention. It's all about understanding a part of knowledge is an ideological self-maintenance of rhythmic recalibration. You're realigning to different rhythms of nature by going through different experiences, pretty much. Okay? And so as you come to a point where you question the value of the whole system, right? So let's say right now we get a bunch of people, and I like, imagine if they were here, and I would tell them, okay, I'd ask the first guy, what do you think the whole world is? Do you think it's a good place or bad? And these are the only two answers. There's no trick questions or whatever. These are the only two, And I'd see somebody says it's a good place, and I see somebody says it's a bad place, I would look at these two people and I would be like, okay, we can see through different dualities, yet the truth is in the direct experience. Truth is a direct experience. That's the clue. You got to thank Vedanta for that. Pretty much you realign yourself. You realign yourself in many ways. Biologically, you do it by breathing. Anytime you feel stressed out physically or something, just slow things down by 70% and just breathe. Okay, you got to just go into rhythms of your breath. Your breath is like this incredible tool you are. That means imagine right beside you there was this mechanical being, like this mechanical robot friend. And this mechanical robot friend's like, yo man, look at how my, like, how the tech is occurring, like for example, like as the robot is kind of artificially breathing, right? And so you look at that being and you see, look at how your body is organically and biologically kind of being kept. You see, that means, I'll tell you, when I think surgeons love science fiction because the world of the body and the cells is a strange world. For me, I can't wait for an honest person in the medical field to come and explain health and biology and everything to people in a simple way on YouTube. That guy would be, I mean, there are people like that, but I'm saying anybody who pursues that path is wise. You walk alone, you find the others, you build a world, you continue, you rest in peace, your eyes open, everything is everything, but nothing is the same. That is the kind of happy ending after moment, where the eternal presence of the creature is, where the process of change can no longer be considered, so the person becomes an eternal moment. So what I'm telling you is that you cannot avoid the concepts of eternity, and you cannot avoid the concept of emptiness. These two concepts we cannot avoid. And they don't teach this to kids because they feel kids are going to get scared or something. But I will tell you, it doesn't matter what happens to you. What matters is how your journey was a value that you understood. You get an inspiration because you can help the world by first seeing how it moves then. Do you see? And I always, like, when I heard about evolution, I felt like a wave of courage coming into me. You know why I'm saying this, like, it's hilarious to me now when I think of, but because I realize I have evolved from an animal. Okay, so that means everybody has an ability to be intense, to be animalistic. Okay, in moments of anger, rage, kind of confusion, conflict. In those moments, we're kind of like we become a savage. We are the levels of our savageness that usually our inner morality restricts have now just been kind of like broken, and the animalistic behavior comes in because the angry person believes what he sees is the only truth, and the other angry person believes what he sees is the only truth. That's why it was kind of like, what was the term? They're butting horns or something. Like that's why when two angry people fought, it was equivalent to seeing two cows fight with one another because the cows didn't know better, but these guys do, and yet they're still fighting like cows. You know, for me, it doesn't matter if two armies, one of them has advanced technology, the other has like lesser advanced technology, and they go into a war and people die. Like, you know what that is? That's like, again, two cows hitting one another. This is why war was a stupid idea, but a good game. So if we could incorporate the intensity of war, but in a virtual game, our video games become the battlefields that our ancestors walked in. If that could happen, then so many people will be inclined towards technology and the kind of virtual revolution that's going to occur, the virtual reality revolution. And that's going to be a very strange phase. I'm kind of writing a lot of books. Like, I'm writing a certain science fiction story where in this science fiction story, I have put in what I find could be potential solutions to the inevitable chaos that will arrive. So I'm kind of commenting on the moment before the apocalypse, and I'm saying that, okay, this is what I feel the psychological development is going to be. It's going to recognize it was never its individuality. The death of you is not the death of the idea of you. In some sense, you are not just, you are the universe's eyes. When you understand this, you stop freaking out. You begin understanding the world. You begin seeing, holy shit, this waking life is an opportunity. You know, it's an opportunity where the opportunity can only be valued as much as you value your freedom. So the freedom of your attention suggests the ability of you to even be able to see truth. You break the inner illusions, and then you walk peacefully in the world. Now, when you walk peacefully in the world is a wild place. But you begin to see you confront every moment as it comes, yet you do not lose how your attention is functioning as its honest self. Because there's a way you can be right now where you feel tired, and there's a way you can be right now where you don't feel tired, where it's effortlessness. Because the concept of tiredness is not a notion of it's not a burden for you. Sometimes we put the world on our shoulder just to feel like, just to prove to ourselves like we have value, but it's kind of kind of somebody acting in a costume. Do you see? This is why I am. If somebody asks me questions that are more closer towards the unknown, the more we speak about the unknown, the more my viewpoint will just reveal its, like, it will be multidimensional. The more we talk about knowledge and evidence and just objectivity, the more my attention comes to the singular. And yet this attention, it sees these different attributes, yet it is neither. So here's the next Rubik's Cube that I'm going to ask all the children of the world to try to solve after they've done all the Rubik's Cubes and whatever. Like, this is the next Rubik's Cube to do. This Rubik's Cube is you wondering, you just being an honest kind of, either a journalist or like some kind of explorer, you know, or a certain discoverer or something, having that sort of approach. You wonder how you can see other people and they behave based on their own free will, yet all